My dad's parents are both self-centered jerks. Their number one priority has always been for people to think they have this perfect family with perfect kids. They didn't care at all about dad's happiness and just wanted him to be the perfect trophy son who they could rub in their friends' faces. They forced him into activities that made him miserable. My dad got a knee injury that still affects him now from a jerk on the wrestling team that my grandparents forced them to join. They blamed dad for the jerk's behavior and only cared that he wouldn't be able to do sports anymore. Their falling out happened when my dad stood up to them and told them that he was not going to be a doctor or lawyer. They didn't come to his college graduation or wedding. Dad gave them one last chance to change their ways and be in my life, but they refused because I was being raised by my father and would turn out bad like him. My uncle is 9 years younger than Dad. He also was a natural academic athlete, so obviously my grandparents were very different parents to him and were thrilled to be grandparents to my cousin V. Now my grandparents are always pissed off with V because she isn't a straight-A cheerleader or whatever they want to impress their friends with. V says they still complain because when V was 6, she did ballet, and they could impress their friends with her. V was one of the people who cut her hair to show support for cancer patients at her school's cancer awareness rally. Our grandparents literally threw a temper tantrum because V changed her own hair without their input. My grandparents barely even talked to me before, but they've suddenly been super friendly, only to me. They still ignore my dad, and show up to all my events. Whenever they try to make conversation, I just politely say, "That's nice," and that I have to get back home and work on homework. Earlier this week I had my choir concert where I got 2 solo songs. My grandparents were there, and after the show ended were loudly saying, "You did so well, honey. That's our grandchild." I tried to again leave by saying I had to go, but they stopped me and said how they just wanted to say they were so heartbroken by these spiteful rebelling, and how they were so proud of me succeeding, despite your father. This really set me off, so I loudly told them they need to stop pretending to be amazing grandparents when they're only interested in me because their golden grandchild stopped being perfect enough for them. The other attendees pretended not to pay attention, but I noticed several whispering. My grandfather just snapped that they were leaving and my grandmother looked like she was going to cry. Several acquaintances have said even though the way they did it was unhealthy, my grandparents were ultimately trying to do what they believed would be best for us, and I was out of line to publicly humiliate my elderly grandparents, who even if misguided, were trying to show support and pride in me. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They don't care about you, they're just using you. Unless you left some stuff out, you didn't even curse or say anything nasty, just called them on their behavior. Not the a-hole. You are not the one who made this a public issue, they did. Tell the truth to anyone you want. If your grandparents really think they haven't done anything wrong, they won't care. If they feel ashamed because people know about their own actions, that means they believe those actions are shameful. Not the a-hole. A narcissist is a narcissist. Your dad and you are lucky they had a golden child for so long. Create a strong boundary. Don't let them break it. They'll go away shortly after. Not the a-hole. You are not obligated to play along with whatever fantasy world your grandparents have created for themselves and their friends. They sound fake and judgmental. Why on earth would you want them in your life? Good for you for putting a stop to their nonsense. For a bit of background, I've always been the disappointment in my family, and my older and younger sisters were the favorites, especially my older sister. And this was mostly because of grades and subject choices, and eventually career. My sister took all the good subjects, think physics and such, and I did not. After high school, I didn't have the grades for the fancy university in my country, and my parents didn't want to pay for me to go study animation like I wanted. In their eyes, it was not a good job. I tried to convince them, but they didn't change their minds. So I took a year off to work and moved out of my parents' house. The next year, I applied for a 1-year course in IT engineering. After I finished the course, I applied to a lot of jobs, even the ones I did not qualify for, and was lucky enough to get a job that paid well, and they were even kind enough to teach me more things as I worked. And since I had no family to spend time with, and most of my friends from high school were too far or busy to hang with me, I spent most of my extra time working, which paid off because I got a lot of promotions, and now I make about $225K a year. My oldest sister went to university to study engineering and got a job as an engineer, but eventually said she wanted to study and then do law, and has been working as a lawyer. And from what I hear, she's making about $150 to $180K a year, and she was being treated as the golden child. My parents don't know how much I make. My younger sister's in university studying biology, and my parents said they wouldn't pay for her unless she became a real doctor, and she's been studying with a scholarship and has been working for extra cash because my parents don't give her any money, which has made me and her closer because she was now being treated the same way as me, and I've been sending her $7K every month so she can focus on her studies. Now, about 2 weeks ago was my mother's birthday, and she invited me, much to my surprise. Originally, I thought someone was dying, or someone needed a kidney, and didn't want to go, but my girlfriend said I should go. When I got there, it was nothing but complaining and talking about how much of a success my older sister was. I was determined not to fight and took everything on the chin, but eventually then started doing the same to my younger sister, and she chose the opposite, and basically called them out on their favoritism, and told them I was making double what my older sister makes, and that I had been sending her money every month for the past 2 years, and all this happened in front of the whole family and all their friends. After all this, I left with my younger sister, and started to get phone calls from my parents yelling at me for not telling them how much I made, and for not sending them money instead of my useless sister, and calling me an a-hole for not doing so. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Nope. They backed the wrong horse, and now they get to ride it to the bitter end. They actually did you a favor. Their first response was about money, so you know what they value. Money. Terrible parents, treating their children like future banks. Carry on helping your younger sis. Remember who the parents really are, and spare some sympathy for the golden child who's been groomed into being the horse that carries them. Wow. Just wow. You are absolutely not the a-hole here. Congratulations to you on all of your success and hard work. Only you get to decide what you do with your hard-earned money, and the fact that you're helping your sister when your parents refused is incredibly admirable. It's laughable that your parents think that you should send them money after the way they've treated you and your sister. If I were you, I would walk away and never look back. Not the a-hole, but the sister who champions you. She drove a stake through the worldview with her outburst. You have absolutely no obligation to share your income with anyone if you don't want to. You also have no obligation to send money to parents who refuse to support you in your career goals when they don't appear to have valued you. I think you're great for supporting your younger sister, and you should have a Cheshire cat smile going on, because you overcame and aren't the loser they imagined you to be. Haha. My, male 25, older sister is planning to get married in the winter. We've had a rocky relationship throughout our childhood. She always was the golden child, and was always the overachiever. I was only really naturally good at athletics in high school, but I had to work for everything in the classroom. She was naturally smarter, and her grades were better than me. I guess I was a little insecure because I had to work really hard for something that was natural for her. She constantly let me hear it how she was better at school. We bickered a lot, and my parents usually took her aside. It was manageable until the big incident happened. When I was a junior and she was a senior, we were both in relationships. She was dating this questionable guy, and my parents were against their relationship. I was dating this really sweet girl who my parents absolutely loved. My sister got jealous and started sending hateful messages to my girlfriend. Some of the messages included stuff like, "He's immature," or "He's going to cheat on you." My girlfriend broke things off with me, and it really messed with me. After that, me and my sister couldn't talk without arguing. When my sister started planning her wedding, my parents came to me to ask for some money. They didn't save enough for her wedding and needed about $10K. I immediately said of course because I knew my parents felt guilty about not saving enough. They also helped contribute a bit for my college. I told them to not tell my sister and to keep this discreet. Well, they told my sister hoping it would fix things between us. Immediately after that, my sister blew up my phone telling me that she doesn't need my pity and that this doesn't change things. At that point, I was sick of everyone's crap. I tried to do something nice for the family, and I get treated like crap. The final straw was when my sister said I don't have a +1 because of seating issues. She did this knowing I have a girlfriend I have to explain this to. I had enough and decided I'm not contributing a dime. I told my parents, and they freaked out. Am I the a-hole? Your sister actively does not want your money. She's made it clear she will still hate you if you contribute your money. She might even hate you more for doing it. And she has gone out of her way to prevent you from bringing your girlfriend, despite the fact that she currently knows you are making a substantial financial contribution towards this. Not the a-hole. She is actively ungrateful for this. You can spend your money in better ways. Not the a-hole. You're 25 years old, and your parents are asking you for $10,000 toward her wedding because they didn't save enough for it. I can't imagine either having a wedding that I, or others who agreed to pay for it, couldn't comfortably afford, or parents asking their child for so much money for something like that, especially for a sister with whom you don't get along. Especially not heeding your wishes to not tell your sister, especially after your sister's reaction of your assistance. You're also not the a-hole for your frustrations with your sister, incidentally. Not the a-hole. You tried to do something nice for her, yet it was not appreciated by your sis. Cut her off, and let go of this situation. Clearly she's not willing to let go of the past. I know about narcissistic parents and all of that, but in this case, it's my grandmother who is the narc. She is very vain, very much a big Jesus fan, and is cheap as hell 50% of the time. I'm the favorite grandchild by a long shot. She doesn't like who my aunt married, the mom of my 2 cousins, and she also doesn't like my cousins' partners, my uncle, grandmother's son. Never had children. Grandmother was completely unenthusiastic about her great-granddaughters from cousin A, Cassie, and barely enthusiastic about her great-grandson from cousin B, Laura. She hardly acknowledges any of them, makes disparaging remarks, and barely seems to give a crap about any of them. Me, on the other hand, she'll give me almost anything, including access to her credit card and a bank account she hardly uses. She told me I could buy whatever I wanted as long as it wasn't illegal and it didn't clear out above a certain amount every month. Recently, Cassie's apartment suffered severe fire damage, and Laura had her son this year. She wasn't inclined to help either of them, saying that the fire wasn't her fault, and Laura could handle her own crap. Yet, she will still donate to strangers and favored family members. So, I used that same credit card and bank account. Cassie got a couple $100 towards the GoFundMe set up for her family, and replacements for some of the things the girls lost. Laura got some sweet baby supplies. Grandmother found out recently, though, and is hopping mad that I used her money to help them. The same money she told me that I could do whatever I wanted with. She's not threatening to cut me off, yet, but she's made her displeasure with me clear. She says I should know better than to help them. I pointed out that she said I could do what I wanted. Am I the a-hole here? Edit. FAQ edition. 1. Why not use gift cards? Give them cash, the gifts directly. We live in different countries. I had intended to go there myself on my own dime earlier this year, but the thing stopped me. 2. Why not use your own money? I kinda did as well. Say I gave Cassie $1,000, 500 of it was my money. I used grandmother's account to give them extra. 3. My relationship with my grandmother. I love her, but despite everything she's done for me, she's also had her foul moods against me as well. She doesn't like it when I call her out on it, but then after she gets it out of her system, it's back to being her usual self. I'm also her PA of sorts, driving, appointments, bills, sometimes with my money when she refuses to pay them, pet care, etc., plus my actual job. 4. Cousins, aunts, relationship with grandmother. Cordial. They send messages, pictures, call occasionally, and visit when they can. She once got mad they couldn't come to visit her because they couldn't afford it at the time. Not the a-hole. Don't hate the player, hate the game. When my grandpa gives me money, I buy something nice for my grandma, his ex-wife, because he beat the crap out of her, and she deserves every cent. Not the a-hole. And that's amazing that you used that privilege for the better to help out your family. I know people in that kind of position that would take advantage and just use it to better themselves. If she makes a big display about this, it's going to make her look awful, so I doubt you'll be in the bad books with other family members. But I do reckon you'll be cut off if you don't provide something to her, like help her with groceries, housework, and she needs you around. If you're dependent on her for financial support, I'd suggest making plans. I will say a light yes, the a-hole. You didn't do bad by helping out, but you could have withdrew the money and sent. She clearly doesn't want to help or look like she helps. There's probably more to that than you know. You should have known better, and she doesn't need to give a reasoning for being mad. My mother-in-law is one of those incestuous mothers who are in love with their sons. When my husband finished school, he moved out as soon as he could for that reason, and kept his distance. Well, now that we have a daughter, we both agreed she can spend more time around us for our daughter. She's very good with her, and honestly at first, he saw a difference. She had changed, but lately, she's been making comments and kinda going back to her old ways. Well, yesterday she came over just before my husband came home from work, and since he wasn't around, she thought she could talk crap about my appearance and the mess in my house. I was breastfeeding my daughter, so I just brushed her off. When my husband came home, he came up to me and kissed my and our daughter's foreheads, and asked how are my beautiful girls. Before I could answer, my mother-in-law said she is good, and my daughter's name is okay for now. My husband turned to her and told her that he was talking to me, but is happy to hear she's good too. My mother-in-law then said, as you can see, my name isn't okay. She looks like a mess. Honestly, I was tired and over it, so I told her we're not gonna do this, and if she has a problem, she can leave. My house wasn't even a mess. She got upset and started arguing, and then said, give it time, my son will come back to me. Before my husband could say anything, I caught her jealous and weird, and told her her son loves me and picked me. This obviously upset her more, but before she could open her mouth, my husband politely told her to leave. She left after some time. My husband said I said what had to be said, and she won't be allowed back until she learns boundaries and respects me. Since then, my husband's siblings and my father-in-law have been calling and messaging him, calling us both a-holes for how we treated his mom. My husband blocked his family on my phone and said we did nothing wrong, but I kind of feel crappy for ruining things with his other family members that he got along with by being immature and petty. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You were neither immature nor petty as you wrote here. Mother-in-law has crossed all kinds of boundaries here, and she needs to understand this. Good for hubby to draw a line and say she won't be allowed back until she respects you. You get a good one there. Congrats. 1. You found yourself a supportive husband. 2. Your mother-in-law knows what not to say or do in your house. 3. You won't be seeing her for some time. I understand you feel guilty, but sometimes things need to be said in order to be able to maintain a healthy relationship with your mother-in-law and the rest of the family. See it as an investment for the future, not the a-hole.